While Vorden continued to search the arena for some type of secret exit, Quinn was pretending to look for one as well while walking around. Instead, he wanted to inspect the ability book he had received earlier from the metal container. As soon as he thought about his inventory, a screen appeared in front of him. Then, when just thinking about the item, the system would come up with a message. "Would you like to take out the Level 6 Shadow Ability Book?" This time, rather than a monotone robotic voice the system usually played in his head, it was the annoying, energetic blonde man's voice. "Inspect. Level 6 Shadow Book can only be learnt by those that have been blooded." As Quinn used his inspect skill, a weird word had been added at the end. Blooded? Was that another name for vampires, perhaps? When Quinn tried the other ability books, he wasn't able to learn any of them. It started to make Quinn ask more questions about the book. Why did the military keep such a high-level book locked away? Was it because everyone had died, or were they planning to sell it off for the future? Either way, he had never heard of someone possessing a shadow ability before. Just then, the annoying voice was heard again. "So it looks like you want to learn more about the book, huh? Well, I can tell if you want. Do you want to know?" The AI system seemed to be just as annoying as the man himself. "Your guess is correct. Blooded refers to those that have been blessed or cursed, whichever way you want to look at it, with vampire blood. It doesn't matter if they're a halfling, a vampire lord, or even a ghoul. As long as they possess some of the vampire's blood, they are able to learn these abilities." "Do you know why the book was here?" "I have no clue." The AI system had surprisingly answered in great detail. It was like the blonde man said. While the inspect skill was able to tell him information about items, his system would clarify things to him related to the system. Quinn was still unsure about whether to learn it or not, as he still needed more information, and it seemed like the AI was the perfect person to ask. "Is this the only ability book vampires can learn? And can vampires learn more than one ability?" "Just like humans, vampires are only able to learn one ability. Whether or not there are other ability books out there like this, who knows? There may be some stronger, they may be weaker." The AI system was only an AI system after all. The problem was, if this truly was another ability that Quinn was unable to use in the outside world, he didn't want it. Another ability that the world didn't know about meant he would be targeted. However, the question remained if there even was an ability that vampires could use as well as humans. Quinn had asked the AI more questions, hoping to get an answer it had no clue and would just reply back with sarcastic answers. With that being said, there was one person in the room that was knowledgeable about these things, and he might just know about the shadow ability. Vorden. Although the system stated blooded were the only ones that could learn it, maybe there were other vampires out there that had used the ability before. As the two passed by each other while making their rounds around the stadium, Quinn popped the question. "Vorden, have you ever heard of an ability that uses shadows?" "Shadows? Honestly, my gut instinct would be no, or at least not the world anyway. But you were honest with me, so it's time I'll be honest with you," said Vorden. The two of them then sat down a few chairs apart in the stadium, one of the rows that hadn't been trashed from the fight. "Remember when I said earlier how I kept an eye on you because I couldn't copy your ability? Well, you're not the first one, or not the first one in our family," said Vorden. "As you know, I'm an original, so our powers have been passed down from generation to generation for hundreds of years. In my great-grandfather's journal, there was a time he said he had come across another user with an ability. Now back then this was rare, the whole world still didn't know humans had super capabilities, but each time we would come across one, my family would log it, especially since our ability relied on others. For the first time, he had come across someone's ability he couldn't copy. So is that why you were so interested in me?" Vorden's face started to go a little red as he was embarrassed hearing those words. "When you say it like that, it sounds a little strange. I assure you I don't think of you in that way," Vorden said awkwardly, but then his face went serious. "Now that I told you, tell me, how would something the public not know about would you know about?" At the moment, Quinn lifted the ability book in his hand, which had the words Shadow Ability written across it. For a second, Vorden had to rub his eyes to check he wasn't seeing things. He thought perhaps Quinn might have learned something when he turned into a vampire about it, but to actually have the ability book in his hand itself. "Whoa! You actually found it! I was sure it would have been an original skill, but there was actually an ability book. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's learn it now. We have all the time in the world and we're stuck here doing nothing." "Well, I really did want to learn it, but the problem is if I did, others would be after me, just like they would for the vampire ability." Vorden started to think long and hard if there was anything he could do to help him. Then his master plan came to him. "I think we can use the situation we're in to your advantage. said Vorden. "The school must know by now that we have been sent to another planet, a red portal planet at that. There are things that have been undiscovered on these planets all the time. You can just say you found the book here, that you learnt it for your survival. They all know you're level 1 trash." Vorden paused for a moment after saying those words. "I mean, they all think you're just a level 1, right? I'll say while we were in the portal world I protected you, and as payment, after learning the skill, you decided to hand the book over to me. That way the people will no longer be bugging you for it, but my family instead." Vorden smiled as if he had just cracked the toughest case in a mystery novel. "Are you sure your family will be okay with that?" For a split second, Quinn thought he had seen Vorden's face drop, but then he blinked and looked again. It was completely normal. "Yeah, they'll be fine. With the plan or set, let's get to learning that ability book. I can't wait to see the faces of everyone when we get out of here." "If we get out of here," Quinn said. Vorden and Quinn stood opposite each other in the center of the stadium, not too far from each other so they could hear each other without having the need to shout. Now, what I'm about to tell you, they would probably teach you at the school later on anyway, but I'm going to tell you now because it should be helpful when learning the ability book. Vorden then started to use the magnetism ability he had obtained from Ian. He pulled over a small bolt and began to levitate around in his hand. Everyone knows about the power level system. There are 8 levels in total. These levels are actually determined by how many mutant cells you are able to activate in your body and not actually determined by strength. Let's take the Earth ability as an example. Someone with a low number of cells is only able to transform the Earth they can hold in their hand, while a level 5 Earth user might be able to lift the Earth from the ground without touching it. These type of ability books contain information on how to activate more mutant cells for your specific type of ability. But if the power levels don't actually determine strength, then why the test when we started school? Quinn asked. Good question, said Vorden. The test the military gives you is actually to put you into the subcategories they created, the 1.1, 1.2, etc. This can sometimes be determined by what skills you have as well. Vorden then lifted up his wristwatch and showed him the number currently displayed, which said 6 on it. Quinn was suddenly confused because he was sure he had seen the number 5 on it before. These watches are the answer. The watches they put on us are able to determine the number of mutant cells in our body. Before even taking the test, they knew what level we were at. They simply just set the watches to an off mode the moment we arrived. When I use my ability, I also copy the number of mutant cells in their body, which is why the watch now shows the number 6. Quinn seemed to be learning so much, it just proved that the information that was revealed to originals compared to the rest was different. This also further confirmed that Quinn being a vampire wasn't an ability. The number on his watch had never changed, or maybe it was the fact that his cells were no longer human. Think about it. Not every test is able to determine someone's strength. Some abilities allow you to tell if someone is telling the truth. Some allow super hearing, and some can help you see into the future. Although these might not be strong fighting abilities themselves, they require a high number of mutant cells to activate in the first place. And now that brings me to your book, Vorden said as he pointed towards it. It might take a while before we can tell if you have the ability to learn it or not. It sounded harsh, but what Vorden was saying was true. Now, we move on to the second problem. Even though you have the ability book, what about skill books? With no skills, you will most likely only be able to unlock 1/10 of its power. But don't let that get you down. The ability books and skill books are only shortcuts to learning these things in the first place. When the originals discovered their powers, they had no books. They learnt and discovered everything themselves. Quinn thought about everything Vorden had said. He further went on to explain that each book would explain a technique that could be used to mutate a specific type of cell. The higher the ability book, the more information it would reveal about the method used. Some abilities just didn't have lower levels and required people to have a high number of mutant cells to use them. There was another little bit of information he revealed, but decided to not go into too much detail. It was the fact that your soul weapon also had something to do with the number of mutated cells in your body as well. This would determine how strong of a soul weapon you had. The example Vorden gave was Momo. Although Momo's ability wasn't too strong in a fight, his soul weapon was incredibly powerful as a level 6 ability user. Vorden had explained that learning a level 6 ability book of the Bat would take months to learn, but while here, they could get a head start. But Quinn thought differently. There was one thing Vorden didn't know, and it was that his vampire abilities also worked like a system. He touched the book once more, and the system message popped up again. Would you like to learn the level 6 shadow ability? There was no going back after this. Yes. The book then lifted into the air, and the pages started turning and flashing in front of him. Suddenly there was the sense of déjà vu. Vorden stood on the sideline and took a step back. He had never seen anything like this happen before. Then finally, once all of the pages of the book had been flipped, it disappeared and vanished into thin air. Vorden immediately rushed over to Quinn, who was holding his head with his hand. "What happened? Are you okay?" Vorden asked. "Yeah, I'm fine." As the pain in his head slowly went away, he looked up, and in front of his vision, he was greeted with multiple messages. "Congratulations! You have learned the level 6 Shadow ability. You have now unlocked the Shadow Skills tab. You have unlocked the Mutant Cell stat. 10 skill points have been added. New Shadow Skill Dimensional Storage has been activated. New Skill Shadow Control Level 1 has been added."
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.